Hey everybody, welcome back to Random Projects with Danger. This episode, I actually filmed and made this machine about 5 years ago, 2019 I believe. My filming skills were awful back then. I mean, they still are awful, but they were way worse back then. So the shots aren't going to be lighted well, and sometimes I have, the camera the wrong way. But you're going to get the gist of this. This is Sno-Zilla. It's a 54-inch snowblower attachment that I made for my skid steer Bobcat, and it has its own engine to power it, and it cuts through some pretty deep snow. So let's go.
I definitely don't claim to be a professional, but if you don't know what you're doing, don't try this at home. I started ripping these things apart. I got the blower housings off, and I noticed that the pulleys were engaging by some kind of knuckle system. So you'd pull the lever and it would engage the pulley. Well, unfortunately, the half of the knuckle that was on the pulley didn't have any splines on it, so I had to figure out a way to take the spline piece and bolt it to the pulley. So that's what I did. I was able to drill and tap 3 holes that lined up perfectly with the pulley. That way I could bolt that splined piece directly onto the pulley, put it onto the spline shaft, and I also drilled and tapped a set screw to hold it in place. Did that for both blower housings. As you can see, it slides right on. Good to go. One of the impeller blades is bent. They must have picked up a pretty big rock to bend it like that. So we had to straighten that out. So we got out the torch and heated it. We used a little persuasion, maybe a sledgehammer, but we got it all back into the shape that it was supposed to be. This impeller has already been modified. It looks like somebody took a torch and cut out part of these impeller blades in order to help with the snow, in order to get in there and be ejected. Only one of them had this modification though, so I did my best to recreate it on the second one. So I took a little whiz wheel action, cut out some pieces so it could do roughly the same job as the original. I'm sorry the video jumps around. Here I am cutting the welds in order to take the blower housings apart because they need to be joined together. So I got it on the bench and I ground off all the welds, and then I set it on the ground next to the other one, which is slightly shorter. They equal 54, but one of them slightly larger. And we just have to get out that middle piece and weld them all up. As you all know, in order to have clean welds, you gotta have clean metal. So I got out the old wire wheel and I went to town. Boy, did that make a mess of the shop. Holy smokes, it was dusty in there. This is me stitching the metal together with my trusty 110 MIG welder. Coat of self-etching primer for the undercoat. I couldn't find any safety orange Rust-Oleum, so I went to the local hardware store and had him mix me up some of that super spec orange and some safety yellow for the augers themselves. I tried spraying some of this. I diluted it and with a little mineral spirits and sprayed it on. It worked quite nicely, but I think it was much better to brush it on. Much thicker coat. Letting all the paint dry. sprayed all the chutes as well. You can see the cardboard box. That's the engine that's going on this thing. The Duro Max from Walmart.com. Trying to figure out a way to join this together here, so I used some threaded rod and threaded them both together. Later on that would prove to not work, so we had to do a little bit of a modification there. That needed a slip joint, because they basically just started unthreading themselves until the point where they were no longer attached. I got the pulleys on. I got the augers together. Right now they're threaded together. Again, that's gonna change in the future, but it was at this point I realized I needed a bearing in the center. It was kind of sagging in the center where they were joined together, so I put a bearing in there, and I used part of the old blower housing to make the bracket for the bearing. And actually I used a modified muffler clamp in order to hold the bearing in place. It worked quite nicely, actually. Boom, welded in place. See, there's the muffler clamp, holds it in there nicely. Here's the engine. Brand new out of the box. Duro Max 18 horsepower. I ordered the electric clutch to disengage and engage the augers. Now we just got to get it mounted in that. This is what I came up with. A bunch of angle iron for the engine mount. I had to ruin the awesome paint job in order to weld it all together, but it's very sturdy. It holds up nicely. Had to fire up the lathe. I had to shorten that shaft in the fabrication of the chute drives. We have the shaft all trued up in the lathe, ready to turn down so it fits the sprocket. And there's the original shaft, how long it is, and the new cut down one that fits into the sprocket. And that's what's going to operate the chutes. I got the chain all in place. I have to put an electric motor right there on that sprocket in order to turn the chutes left to right. And I also have to make some sort of guard so the chain doesn't hit the clutch. That's where the electric motor is going to end up going. This is what I came up with to hold the chain off of the clutch. I welded up a bracket and I lined it with plastic so it would have some wear to it, so it would have some give. Both of those sprockets on either end are adjustable so I can tension the chain. And here's the electric motor. It's an electric window motor. I have that all mounted and I'm giving it a test run. Here is the scraping blade. I ended up welding the two scraping blades together to make one for the bottom. And the control box. The upper left is the on-off switch, the upper right is the starter. Right in the middle there you pull that to engage the augers, and the bottom switch is left and right for the chutes. Here's the start of the frame that hooks onto the Bobcat. Started fabricating that and welding it. Those are the pockets for the bottom. The bottom pins end up riding through. There it is, mostly tacked into place. Some pretty heavy angle iron that holds this in place. Using the 110 Craftsman welder. Not the prettiest welds in the world, I can tell you that, but they've held up nicely over the years. There's the engine, all mounted. Had to add a little spot for the battery box. A little extra bracing to keep it from twisting. These little side pieces Actually have to bolt on to the center so I can get the belt on and off if need be. Kind of tricky to fish that in there. Here I am attacking all the wiring, all the relays for the left and the right of the chutes, the starter, all the control box. I put all relays in there to control it all. Here's the chute test. We got left and we got right. You can't hear it right now, but the engine is running in this video. You pull that, and the impellers start working. The clutch engages. I had to mock up the front cover to cover up the belt. I was going to say engine cover, but I guess it is an engine cover. A little cardboard mock-up. Little sheet metal work. Get ourselves a cover. And there's the cover intact. All right. Here we go. When I added the graphics to the blower housing, I also added graphics to the controls so you can see what actually does what on the remote. And these are the still pictures. Again, this wasn't a very awesomely documented project. I was kind of more focused on getting it done than I was filming or taking pictures. That's why I had to re-edit this and do a voiceover. Project took 6 weeks of fabrication, 80 to 90 hours total.
That was a fun process. Well, fun and frustrating. I learned a lot of things about belt drives. I had the tensioner on the wrong side, so when I first tested it out, it was throwing snow, but it wasn't throwing snow that far because the belt was slipping, and I didn't really realize that at first. But we got that all squared away, and she runs good, so check this out. That was a fun build. I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button so you can see more of my stuff when I post it.